Every year, before the season starts, certain websites offer up their analysis of the upcoming fixture. Team by team, they rank the difficulty of the draw, with some even offering up a points rating system. The analysis is obviously based on the previous year's form, but as we all know, things can change so quickly from season to season. The reporting fills an off-season void, but in reality, there isn't much meat on the bones, and therefore should be taken with a grain of salt. What does surprise me is the lack of analysis once the home and away season has been completed. We are always so quick to scan the ladder and pass judgment on which teams underperformed. But what if there were legitimate reasons as to why certain clubs struggled? Is it possible that the inequities and lopsidedness of the deeply compromised fixture was the cause of this so-called underperforming? Let's dive in and take a look. Welcome to AFL Insight. As is the case every year, once the season is done and dusted, the team that creates the AFL fixture break the clubs up into 3 groups of 6. In theory, the bottom 6 teams should have the easiest schedule the following season. The middle 6 teams should receive a fairly balanced draw, while the top 6 teams should have the most difficult fixture. But things fluctuate so wildly from season to season. Did anyone seriously anticipate Richmond having the worst season in their history so quickly after their dynastic run? In the first 23 years of the Final 8 system, between 1994 and 2016, only 3 premiers missed the finals the following season. It has now happened 4 times in the last 8 seasons alone. A 50% strike rate from almost a decade's worth of data. So what does this tell us? Well, clearly, luck has a major role to play in such an uneven setup. A top 6 side from the previous season might just be lucky enough to be drawn against 2 other top 6 sides who are on their way down, 2 middle 6 teams who are mired in mediocrity, and 2 bottom 6 teams who remain cellar dwellers. Alternatively, a middle 6 side might be drawn to compete against 2 bottom 6 sides who are ready to bounce up the ladder. 2 middle 6 teams who are normally perennial finalists but had a bit of a down year, and 2 top 6 sides that remain strong contenders. As with most things in life, the only certainty is uncertainty. So before we take a look at who actually copped a rotten draw, let's see who the good people at Fox Sports and the AFL website rated as having the most difficult draws heading into the 2024 season. Fox concluded that the Gold Coast Suns had the easiest draw, whilst the Brisbane Lions fixture was rated the most difficult. Some notes of interest here were that despite making the finals in 2023, the Saints were adjudged to have the 4th easiest schedule. The Cats, who had been premiers just 12 months earlier, received the 5th easiest fixture, whilst teams that missed the finals in 2023, like the Crows and Hawks, had been given a draw that was within the 6th most difficult. The AFL's official website saw things a bit differently. Whilst they concurred that the Lions had the most difficult draw, their rating system had the Hawks and Crows tied for the 8th hardest schedule, and they rated North Melbourne's fixture as the easiest. So what was the reality? The number I have come up with here to determine the difficulty of each club's draw is simply the combined win total of the teams that each side had to play twice during the season. What Fox did get right was the Gold Coast Suns having the easiest of fixtures. Their double-up opponents combined for just the 51 wins. The Suns had the luxury of playing 3 bottom 4 teams twice, yet still missed the finals as they dropped games to both North and West Coast. The second easiest draw belonged to the Hawks. They too faced 3 bottom 4 teams twice, with a combined win total from their 6 double-ups coming in at 56.5. Nowhere near as difficult as both Fox and the AFL suggested. The third easiest schedule belonged to the preliminary finalists Port Adelaide, whose opponents combined to win just 58 matches. They played 1 double-up match against the top 8 side in Carlton, who fell over the line to get there. The West Coast Eagles had the fourth easiest fixture, with their double-ups combining for 60 wins. They did not have to face any finalists twice. Keep this in mind when we get to North Melbourne's schedule. The fifth easiest draw belonged to the Cats, whose double-up teams combined for 63.5 wins. They did not have to compete against a fellow top 4 finisher twice. So we have two of our teams that went on to a preliminary final in amongst the clubs with the 5 easiest draws for season 2024. Tied for 6th on 64 combined wins was Carlton and St Kilda, who both played 3 double-ups against top 8 sides and 3 against bottom 10 teams. Fremantle had the 8th easiest schedule, also playing twice against 3 teams who were bottom 10 and 3 who made the finals, with 65 combined wins. In 9th was the Bombers, who faced just the one finalist twice, as their double-up opponents combined for 65.5 wins. The team who both Fox and the AFL had as having the most difficult draw in the Brisbane Lions came in 10th, with their double-ups combining for 69.5 wins. Like the Dons, they only faced one top 8 team twice. North Melbourne ended up having the 8th most difficult double-ups. Remember when I said to keep in mind that the Eagles didn't have to face a 2024 finalist twice? Well, the Kangas had to do it 4 times, as their double-up matches combined for 72 wins. Not quite the easiest of schedules as predicted by AFL.com. The Dogs' double-up opponents combined for 73.5 wins, including 3 matchups with top 4 sides, giving them the 7th hardest schedule. The Swans had the 6th toughest double-up schedule at 74.5 wins, but only had to face 2 finalists twice, neither of which managed to win during September. Melbourne had to face 3 finalists twice for a combined win total of 75, which meant the D's had the 5th hardest draw. The Tigers ranked 4th, with their opposition combining for 77.5 wins. So now we have reached the top 3 for most difficult double-ups during the 2024 home and away season. The bronze goes to Collingwood, whose double-up matches came to a combined 81 wins, with 4 matchups against eventual finalists. In second, with 83.5 combined opposition wins, was GWS, whose 6 double-ups contained 5 sides who featured in September. And leading the way with the most difficult double-up opponents was the Adelaide Crows, whose 6 extra matchups combined for a whopping 88 wins, or an average of 14.5 wins each. Like the Giants, the Crows also played 5 top 8 teams twice, including all 4 preliminary finalists. Absolutely brutal. So what's your verdict on the Crows season now? When you consider that their double-up opponents combined for 30 more victories than that of their crosstown rivals in the Power. Things aren't so black and white anymore, hey? Like I stated at the beginning of the video, luck plays a huge part. Port Adelaide finished 5th in 2023 and was scheduled 2 extra games against fellow top 6 sides, the Blues and Demons, who both declined in season 2024. Carlton was fortunate to sneak into the finals, whilst the D's slid all the way down into the bottom 5. The Power were also scheduled twice against middle 6 sides in the Saints and Crows, who also had significant drops in form. Whilst their 2 additional matchups against bottom 6 teams came against the Tigers, who bottomed out completely, and the Dockers, who improved, but not well enough to make the finals. 5 of the 6 teams that the Power faced twice in 2024 were worse than the previous season. If we contrast this against the Crows, who had finished 10th in 2023, their double-ups from the top 6 included the Lions and Power, who both remain contenders. They had 3 additional matchups against middle 6 sides, which included the Bombers, Cats and Swans, whilst their only double-up from the bottom 6 came against the irrepressible Hawks. Ouch. Does that amount of rotten luck change your opinion on Matthew Nicks? The guy is now under some serious heat, and might just lose his job if the Crows don't make the finals this season. And these are the consequences of a severely compromised fixture. What if I told you that the Crows won more games against top 8 sides during the home and away season than the eventual premiers? Well, it's the truth. 14 is the maximum amount of times that a club could have played against a top 8 side in 2024. Adelaide played 13, winning 4, drawing once, and losing 8 times. At the other end of the scale, 7 is the minimum amount of times that a club could have played against top 8 sides. The Eagles, Power, and Lions all played just the 8, with the Lions going 3-5 in those matchups. A 5-game differential against the most difficult opponents is a monumental competitive advantage. Not only did the Lions and Power play 5 less games against the top 8 sides when compared to the Crows, it meant they also got 5 extra games against bottom 10 teams. Yes, that's right. Preliminary finalists, the Power, Lions and Swans all had more victories against the bottom 10 with 11 each than the Crows got to even play against the same opposition, which was just the 10 matchups. And this is despite the fact that all 3 of those teams played finals in 2023, whilst the Crows didn't. How is that a fair and equitable system? The Lions won 11, drew once, and lost 3 of their 15 games against the bottom 10. Port Adelaide went 11-4. The Swans went 11-3. The Hawks also had 14 matchups against bottom 10 teams and went 10-4. All of these clubs went on to win a final. At the other end of the spectrum, the Crows had the least amount of bottom 10 matchups with 10, whilst the Giants had only 11 and managed to go 9-2 in these encounters. GWS had 4 less games against inferior opposition when compared to the Power, yet they finished just the 1 win below them on the ladder. What would the final series have looked like if those fixtures were reversed and it was the Giants who had the 3rd easiest double-ups instead of the 2nd hardest, and they got to host Port Adelaide in week 1 of the finals? Would they have been in the box seat for a home prelim? My bet is yes. And what of the consequences of missing the top 4? We've already heard ad nauseum that the Dogs can't finish top 4 under Luke Beveridge. But the Doggies were the only team in 2024 to win 4 games against sides that finished in the top 4. 8 is the maximum amount of times that a club could have played a team in the top 4 last season. The Dogs, Blues and Crows all played 7. The Dogs went 4-3, Carlton went 3-4, whilst the Crows went 2-5. So when the media put the spotlight on Bevo and Vossi, just keep in mind that the Power and Lions played just the 8 games against top 8 sides, whilst the Dogs and Blues played 7 times against the top 4 alone. It changes things a bit, doesn't it? At the other end of the scale, the least amount of times that a club could have played a team in the top 4 is 3. Surprise, surprise, Port Adelaide only played 3, going 2-1 in these encounters, whilst the Cats went 0-3 from their 3 attempts. The Dogs were 1 win away from finishing 3rd and 2 away from finishing 2nd. Again, what does the ladder look like if these schedules are reversed? It's a similar story when we look at matchups against the bottom 4, with 8 being the maximum and 3 being the minimum. The Hawks had 7 games against bottom 4 sides in 2024 and went 7-0. That's right, half of their 14 wins across the home and away season came against bottom 4 teams, whilst they went 1-5 against the top 4. Now this you can cop, because the Hawks had been a bottom 6 team themselves for the previous 4 seasons. But the Cats and Power again fared next best, with 6 matchups against bottom 4 sides. The Cats went 6-0, whilst the Power went 5-1. At the other end of the spectrum, it was again the poor old Crows and the Tigers who had just the 3 matchups, whilst the Pies and Giants had only 4. Now I don't say all of this to diminish the accomplishments of those that finished higher up the ladder. After all, you can only beat who is put in front of you, and these teams have no control over who or where they are scheduled to play. My view is that a bit of perspective is always required. The reality is that 10 teams were more than capable of finishing in the top 4, from Sydney through to Fremantle. Some teams just got the rub of the green and capitalised, whilst others had to go the long way round and came up just short. Others, like the Crows, almost deserve an asterisk against their win column, for it does not paint the picture of just how difficult their fixture from hell was. Are there solutions? Unfortunately, not whilst the fixture remains this compromised. You can check out my video here where we do a deep dive on the inequities of the draw and some possible solutions. There was a bit of interest in net rest differential, which I discussed in the fixture video. Here are the final results, with the Swans gaining the most cumulative rest across the season, while the Eagles had to combine the league's greatest travel fatigue with the least amount of cumulative rest. As always, thanks for watching. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you haven't already, please be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.